was a beautiful night in the state of Athens. So everybody was in their homes. Nobody was looking at the sky and nobody was interested in the beauty. Honorable head table and my dear Villiers. Why was this? Well, there was a very big problem to all the Greek states. The king of this Spartan state was on his throne reading scrolls and scrolls, mountains and mountains of scrolls, each one telling him the same thing. Each one of them were from outstationed spies, and each one was telling him that the Persian army was invading. He knew how strong the Persian army was and how large it was. So he knew that the Olympics were coming and no state would like to give more than 300 or 400 men from their own state. So he knew that the first state that will be attacked will be their state, the Spartan state. So what he did first was he went to visit the oracle. The oracle of Delphi was rumored to say what the god Apollo wanted. So when he went to the oracle told him a prophecy. So this prophecy told him that if a Spartan king did not sacrifice himself on battlefield, the Spartan state will collapse with the whole islands of Greece. So he knew that he had no other way to prevent this major apocalypse, and he gathered 300 of his most elite soldiers, and he went to the nearby states and asked them for their help. Each state gave them about 300 or 400 soldiers and told him good luck. So he marched across his land to a place called Thermopylae. Thermopylae is still popular for its war, the Second Greco-Persian War, but it was a very strategical pass and he stood there defending it. It was the only way in through the mountain range that went across Sparta. So the Persians finally arrived at their destination, Sparta. So when they arrived at that destination, they saw about 7,000 warriors standing facing them. And they were like, what are they going to do to us? We are vastly outnumbered. Because as the historian Herodotus estimated, there were about 300,000 soldiers in the Persian army. The Persian king gave this King Leonidas, the king of Sparta, 4 days to surrender and told him if he did not surrender, he would fire so many arrows, the sun would be blotted out of sight. The king replied saying, then of course we'll have the privilege of fighting in the shade. And the king retreated back into his path. So at the end of the 4 days, the Persian king attacked. The historian Herodotus once again estimated that the Spartan army destroyed half of the Persian army. So the Persian king once again withdrew to think about what is going to happen. So he sent a set of light teams to break through this wall instead of just putting all his teams into this effort. And in this team were 2 of his brothers and his most skillful general. So when they reached the Greek camp, they were spotted as soon as they entered and they were killed. So the Persian king chose a new general and told him to think of a strategical way to get through these people. And the king thought about another pass. Why can there be only one pass through this mountain range? There might be another pass around this. So he went around it and looked for another pass. He was unsuccessful, and finally he asked for the nearby villagers for help. The nearby villagers, all of those villagers told him there was no such pass, but one man, a man called Ephialtes, who was very greedy for riches, betrayed the whole island of Greece. He told them that there was a pass and that was used earlier in a battle, and the Greeks were trying to hide it from their view. He led the Persians through this pass, and finally the Persians reached the other side of the mountain range. Then when they reached the other side of the mountain range, they could easily attack Sparta, but they were angered by the wit of the Spartan king, and they stayed long enough to kill these men. The Spartan king knew that this was his time for sacrifice, and finally he ordered all the foreign troops to evacuate. But his Spartans were told to stay with him. So you might be guessing that only the 300 Spartans stayed with him, but 900 Thebans stayed with him too. That is because they loved this general and they didn't want to see him dead. But those 6,000 soldiers went back to Sparta and told them what happened. All the other countries rallied to the side of Sparta and were ready finally when the Persians arrived. So what I am trying to tell you in this story is that there were many people in this story and they did many things. So some of these people did good things while the other did bad things. Such as Ephialtes. He did not think his decision and he did not think what would happen to him later. He only thought about tomorrow and day after tomorrow where he would have all those money to spend. But what happened really was when the Athenian and the other army destroyed the Persian army, they tracked this man down and murdered him. So even though he was murdered, his name is still tarnished and his whole village is ashamed of him. Even now, I'm talking about even now. So he did not think through about his decisions. That is what I'm trying to tell you. When you do something, you have to think of all the options and then take a decision. You must remember that your decision does not only affect today, they have delayed reactions. Over to you.
Thanks for watching.